We should move on to the third prompt. Again, this one is also optional, but again, I would recommend you do this one as well, unless you feel like you can't or ought not to for whatever reason. All right. Duke's commitment to diversity and inclusion includes sexual orientation, gender identity, and gender expression. If you would like to share with us more about your identity, you can do so here or use any previous essay prompt you feel is appropriate. 250 words as well. All right, so you might be noticing a pattern in the prompts here, right? Duke clearly places a particular emphasis on creating this inclusive environment in which students feel empowered to embrace their individual identities, the elements that make them who they are. If you identify as LGBTQ+, or responding to this optional prompt, you can talk about how your sexuality is an important or defining facet of your life. Then you can be confident and you explain why, if you think that this applies to you. Perhaps just going with the prompt, it's the content of the prompt itself, right? Perhaps your sexuality has only recently caused you to question how you perceive the world. And maybe you want to expound upon the nature of how that has developed over time. This essay would be the place to do something like that. Your approach to this prompt should be similar to the prompt that we just went through, but again, it should be specific to the perspectives that you have and the experiences that you've had relating to things like your sexual orientation, your gender identity and expression, or anything similar, right? So think about moments in your life where your identities were most salient to you, right? Maybe you have developed a deeper sense of empathy as part of your journey with your sexual or gender identity. Maybe your academic interests have been influenced by these experiences. Regardless of how you choose to approach this topic, your essay should still incorporate a lot of deep, thorough reflections on these topics, right? So you could discuss how your sexual orientation folds into your specific overall identity, right? And how it complements your passions, it influences your perspective, impacts your values, things like that. And don't worry if you don't have it all figured out. Maybe you're just beginning to explore elements of these identities. Again, you've come so far, but the journey continues, right? You may still be processing what these identities or the elements of your identities mean for you and how you will approach the world around you. So maybe you still have more questions than you do answers. And you should feel free to reflect on these questions as well, these questions that you're asking yourself and why you're asking yourself these questions. This approach is a great way to demonstrate your curiosity, your maturity, and your self-reflection and evaluation, right? Thinking on everything that has shaped you into who you are at this point and what you've learned, but what you still have to learn and where you still have to go, right? Be careful not to incorporate, just as a small piece of advice, try not to incorporate too many rhetorical questions, though, if you choose to take this approach, just to make sure that things are fairly balanced, right? Ultimately, you want to end this response to a prompt like this in a way that feels conclusive, even if that conclusion is that you simply have so much learning left for you to do about yourself and about others, right? You still have to come to a conclusion. Even if there's more to be done outside the scope of what you can write in this particular response, right? There's always still more to be considered and farther to go. So try to keep that in mind as you work toward a conclusion, but still make sure that you build one that's significant enough to provide a stopping point at the end of a response like